All right. Great then. Hello, everyone. I'm Karan, and I lead international developer relations here at GitHub. You might be like, what the hell is that? Well, basically, what I do, what my team and I do, is really help support developers across various different regions in how best you can use GitHub, how best you can be a part of the open source ecosystem, contribute back to open source, and also, of course, work with folks like Figma, Swiggy, and others on how best you can make all of this come together. So I'm reachable on MV Karan everywhere. You will remember me as Karan, but if you forget MV, just remember move command. All right. Um, Next, I first want to say I am a developer. In case I know that wasn't clear with the title, but I am a developer. And I'm also a developer who works with designers. All right. So in case any of you want to feel pity, now is the time. So one of the things also here is that outside of just helping other developers, I also maintain and manage a few microservices at GitHub, which are largely internal tools, but also a few of the external sites and landing pages, etc. So when I'm talking about whatever I'm talking about, it's of course by experience and also based on how we do things at GitHub. So, before going into that, of course, there's been some real good content here from folks at Figma and also speaking about design systems, right? And of course, there is a design system at GitHub as well, which we call as the primer, all right? And the amazing thing is that when we initially thought about building this, with GitHub being such a core value for us when it comes to open source, we decided to open source the design system as well. So if you go to primer.style, which is right over here, and by the way, this is an example of accessibility. If you're not able to see primer.style, so you can go to primer.style and you can see everything in the design system. I'm going to show it to you as well, but this is at the core of everything that you see on GitHub. Now, before going into a demo, I have a question for all of you, and I like this question. How many of you don't know about GitHub? It's totally fine. I'm not gonna judge anyone. All right. Okay. So now that we are clear, you've heard about GitHub, you know about GitHub, that's fine because I didn't have it as a part of my content anyway. If you said yes, then I'm like, phew. All right. So let's see some of this in action and kind of go through Primer and Figma Dev Mode and how we see. There's also open source, by the way. All right. So this is primer.style. If you go over here, let me just increase the zoom a bit and stop tackling with the challenge of one mic in hand. Okay. All right. So this is our primer design system that's there on primer.style. And you can find most of the things that you see on GitHub or one of the landing pages out over here. Again, contributions and feedback are very much welcome. You'll find the repo for most of these things over here. Of course, there are a whole lot of the components that you would have seen, including some of the design principles and everything else over here. So if you were to go look at some of these branch names, or if you were to go look at your avatars that you see on GitHub, etc. Again, most of these components are available, and something that you can see in React as well. And in fact, when it comes to accessibility, right, we're almost in the process of reviewing a whole lot of the components for accessibility. So you might see some of these badges over there as well. So, most of the components which are over there, which can, again, be viewed on Storybook as well, etc., multiple different places. Now, when it comes to Figma, and you might be wondering Rails, like why Rails? In case you aren't aware, GitHub as an product application platform, runs on a Rails monolith. So there is React as well as Rails over there as well. So if you go into Figma, you can really kind of understand the philosophy of usage of Figma at GitHub as well, where we use Figma as a single source of truth, for collaboration as well as a whole lot of, the exploration when it comes to Figma. Now, of course, you can't find most of that organization, but you can still find, everything that is related to this design system and everything else that I spoke about. For example, Primer Web. Primer Web is, of course, the primary um, design system that is being used across the product. So I love this neat little feature over here where, you can preview this without having to open it up. So you can find a whole lot of the components, that are part of Primer design system that you would have been accustomed to use at GitHub right over here. So we have one other variation of Primer called as Primer Brand, which we use in our marketing landing pages, like when you find on github.com. Someone, while I was talking about this the previous day, said that github.com is a homepage, because when most of the times when you go to github.com, you'll find your own login page. So if you want to go to the homepage, you have to go to github.com/home, and you'll find the beautiful page over there. So so that's about Primer as a design system as well. And I, of course, won't go into a whole lot of the details on why about the design system, because our previous speakers have done an amazing job about it. But you can also, of course, go back into Primer, the repo itself, which is a GitHub organization by itself. And I'll show you about that. So there's, of course, a whole lot of things when it comes to the component life cycle itself, and also the status of many of the components which we have. So again, all of it open source. Now, speaking about Figma and dev mode specifically, right? I thought it's best to give you an example, because Mark, gave you a demo about dev mode and all the features in it, and also about design systems, right? So let's go about a bit into the demo and then see what it's going to look like. So I have one, like a fictitious landing page over here, where where we're kind of looking at the design for a specific solution page on how GitHub can help with healthcare and everything else, etc. By the way, this is a real nice story that's there on YouTube around open source healthcare solutions in India. But as you can see, a very simple, page over here with some resources, and you can find some cards, some logos, and everything else over here. I'm right now in the design mode, and I specifically am using the older UI over here, so that you can kind of see how it works in the new UI that Mark showed, as well as the older one. So one of the amazing things about dev mode, I don't know whether it's an intended feature or a bug which became a feature, is that when you turn on dev mode, you can't really make much changes to the design itself. So I think that's a good thing, where gone are the days when a developer is trying to explore it. Oops, I changed it, and designer was like, "Tune kya? No, sorry, I am not trying to do anything. I am just trying to develop this." Yeah. So that's a good thing. So of course, when we are looking at this, right, at GitHub, it's a very similar workflow to what many of the speakers mentioned. But many of our design engineers are actually involved much more earlier in the process itself, whenever design is happening, specifically for component validation, right? To make sure that whatever is being used are as per the design system which is there, or if they are building custom components, then what's really the specific use case or need to go ahead and build that, right? So for example, there is this is an unattached component, but you can find, for example, this as a logo suite, and these are some of the river components which you can see here on the right. So these are some detached components which are not linked to the library, but it becomes very easy for many of our design engineers, while looking at what are the components which are being used, and whether they are being used from the design system or not itself. For example, this again here is a code component, and then there is again background, which could be a custom component. There are card components again. So here it's an instance of the specific component from the library, etc. So a really nice way just to get an understanding of what does this look like, etc. Now, I want to show Code Connect. That's something Mark and Chanel were talking about as well, right? So, for example, in this specific instance, we have the logo suite over here, all right? Just a bunch of logos, but it becomes very, very easy for our design engineers with Code Connect setup, because here you can see this being linked to the specific component as per primer design style. Yeah. So here, this is a very good way to get started with development, and I'm going to show an example of that as well. And of course, many of the times our designers and developers use the playground as well a lot, where you are able to again open up, and because of the Code Connect, it's easy to make changes and then bring all of those changes from code back into your development as well. So again, there's a heading which you can explore. There are, say, descriptions, light, dark, and various different variations basically of the component in a very safe way for you to use. Yeah. And of course, a really nice thing is that it also references the specific piece of code that's being used. So if you can see over here, this is the source of the logo suite, which is which we are kind of looking at. And most of the times, maybe you don't want to go back into GitHub and then just take a look at the source code, which is where something like the GitHub plugin for Figma comes into play. So if you just see this small little icon top on the right, the GitHub icon, and when you open that, if you have kind of really referenced the component with the source code, right, you will be able to see the specific source code of what this component is right over here itself. And then you can kind of open it on GitHub and then explore further if it's required as well. So a really nice way, and some more functionality that's available as a part of the GitHub plugin as well. But I just showed you one example. Now, all of this, of course, is something which has been already present through Code Connect. And if you go back into here, we have within Logo Suite, the Logo Suite.figma as well. So you can see that the Logo Suite component, again, has been linked over to the primer brand as well as published, which is the reason why we are able to see this over here as well. One of the other ways how many of us designers and design engineers use Figma Dev Mode for is when it comes to various different kind of components that could be used. Now, what I mean by that is, while I'm looking at this, I know this is a heading, but how am I supposed to kind of really map it? Now, of course, when it comes to some of the code gen pieces of typography, right? There are the variables which are there, which could be an indicator. But most importantly, if you look at this here, right, it says it's a heading 1 desktop. That itself is so very useful for us, because then we can just go back into Primer and then say that, okay, this is a heading 1, kind of a component in a desktop viewport. So it's very easier, even if we don't have to use some of the other typographic classes, just to get an understanding of what this component could be. And the other very, very interesting use case for us when we are just getting started building this out is, you would see a whole lot of gradients when either on github.com or many of the landing pages. And here is one good example. You can see a big ellipse over here and then some more pieces, right? Now, these are, of course, not images, but these are drawn using CSS. Now, just imagine how difficult it would be to kind of reproduce the exact same thing if you were to just do it natively without a dev mode. But with dev mode, it becomes very, very interesting and easy, because you get a starting point with the style, with the possibility of using and knowing which are the colors, what are the rotations for these, etc., to arrive at this gradient. So what many of the design engineers do is, of course, look at whether these are mapped to the specific style guidelines that we have or not, and get started, really recreating whatever is there in the design. So this is where dev mode also is very, very helpful, getting started for us in building out the page. So one of the other things I want to show you is really how easy it can be to kind of get started with something like this. So I have a very, very basic version of this page that's built out over here in this repo that I will just show you. Before that, I just need to quickly switch my internet. All of you, please close your eyes. I'm just kidding. So I'm just gonna switch over to my hotspot and just refresh this. All right. So it's a very, very simple Next.js kind of a server that I have running over here. And I'll open this up on a code space, a GitHub code space, which is basically a development environment on the cloud, so that there is complete development I can do on the cloud without having to pull down the repo, set up the dependencies and everything else, and deal with, oh, that version of Node, this version of Node, etc. But rather, I can have all of this within a virtual machine, and access it through VS Code very, very easily. So let me just zoom in this a bit more so you can see what's happening over here. So all of my code is in over here, and there are some specific extensions which are being activated. Here you can see, which is basically my Copilot extension, because it's Karan and Copilot were speaking together. So it's time to bring in my Copilot speaker as well. But before that, there is some basic setup which happens where there's an npm install and a run dev, everything which is which is happening. So that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not worried about all of those things. But once this is done, right, I can actually begin some of the basic development right over here. Okay, great. So npm install is done, bringing up the server, and I can actually access this right here within the browser. So it's going to forward the port back into the virtual machine code space, which I'm running on. So I can quickly preview what's happening within the code space right over here. So as soon as that gets connected, I should be able to see. But yeah, all right, here it is. So something very, very basic based on what we saw in the page that's been implemented. But oops, I think there's a logo suite that's missing. We were speaking about just that right over here, where there is a logo suite is supposed to be there over here. But maybe I think it's one of the instances where the developer really missed out using that specific thing. So let's go back and let's see if we can add this logo suite over here and see how that might work. Well, in the normal world, I might have probably gone back into here and then figured out, okay, where is the logo suite component? I have to, of course, go back into the documentation, which is primer brand, and then I have to go back into logo suite right over here, and then see that, okay, this is how you would go about using it in React with some of these examples and everything else, right? So, but it becomes so very easier when it comes to using DevBoard, because what I can do is, because of Code Connect, and also because of how it has been linked up with the design system component, it becomes very easy for me to go back and then add this, right? So what I'm going to do is, I know there is the code over here, but actually I don't know where I'm supposed to be adding it. Maybe it's time for me to ask Copilot, where should I be adding it? So I'll just say, where should I add logo bar or something. So it's going to look at, my workspace, look at all of my files and everything else, and see that, okay, it says that you can add the placeholder logo bar component in solution page. Well, it's not the placeholder logo component, but at least I think that I get an idea of where it could be, which is in page.tsx. So I'm going to search for placeholder, and okay, there it is. So maybe they made it, it's like, okay, this is a placeholder, let it be. But what I'm going to then do is I will close this first. And I'm just going to grab this. So I really love this neat little feature of the copy button, which is there, which is just going to copy the whole thing for me into the clipboard. And I can come back and I can just remove this placeholder and add the logo suite component. So now we are running in dev mode, and when I go back, there it is, so very easy. I didn't really have to worry a whole lot about how to rebuild this component, get all of the code, figure out and everything else, right? I just saw, okay, this was something which was missing, and just go back and then replace it. And similarly, I can just go back and then say that probably there's something else missing. And again, it's very easier. I can probably just even if I want to experiment, just go back into the playground and then say that, okay, I need a heading over here. All right. And then say, okay, I need a heading. And the really nice part again about Code Connect is that it updates the code here on the right as well. So you can see over here, which says logo suite dot heading, yeah, right over there. So what I can actually do is, even if I just want to play around without changing anything in the design file, I can just again copy that, go back, paste it, and I can get a heading, right? So easy to iterate, especially when with the support of Code Connect, and makes it very, very easy for our design engineers as well to make sure that all of this is in sync with our design system, with Primer, and also accessibility when it comes to it, right? And of course, with the help of tools like GitHub Copilot, iterations also become very, very easier, because it knows about the rest of your code, knows what components you are using, and how you can make it a whole lot more better as well. So in fact, this is real, where one of our software engineers mentioned. So this is the GitHub way of showcasing testimonials on a GitHub page running in a GitHub code space, where it's been really, really helpful for us, where Reza has mentioned about the help that it's really extends for engineering at GitHub. So that's again some of the ways how dev mode and a whole lot of the features are helpful. And of course, there are dev resources as well. For example, what I mentioned previously right now about going back into Primer brand and then searching for the logo suite, etc., can be done very, very easily as well, because of the dev resource which was added, so that I can go back right into the components on primer.style to again look at, arrive at the same way about the usage and the do's and the don'ts and whatnot, etc., which of course the designers need to be taking care of. So that's one thing. And there's another thing that I just want to touch upon. Now, Mark mentioned also about how you can publish all of your Code Connect config files. And I think it's really great that Figma also has an open source GitHub action to make this sync much more easier, where you can sync the tokens to Figma and the Figma variables to tokens as well, and run it as a GitHub action right within your code where your components exist, so that they're probably always in sync as well. So that's really nice, and thanks to Figma for making that happen. And also, it's not just the GitHub plugin or the Code Connect and everything else that we do, but there's also a whole lot more on FigJam. So you can also use the GitHub widget within FigJam, and also of course the plugin that that we spoke about as well. So very, very short. And that's thanks to the previous speakers, because they covered already all of the ground around design systems as well as code connect. But this has been very helpful for us again to go and establish that workflow from design to dev, all the while making sure that the design system is at the front of the front and center, and also making sure that all of what we are building is accessible, and also it is something that elevates the user experience as well. So if you kind of want to stay tuned to more, you can go to x.com/github design, where our design team shares a whole lot of insights on what's happening. Or if you're interested in knowing more about what's more with GitHub in India, you can head over to x.com/GitHub India as well. So that's about it. A very short, presentation on GitHub, Figma, and Primer as well. So all of the resources which I shared again are open source. Be it Primer.style or anything else that was over there. So thank you so much, Figma for having here, and Swiggy for hosting as well.